Greetings, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with a vlog for you. And today I'm going to be talking about a couple of things, namely Etsy, craft fairs, and charity. Now, at the time of this filming, it is October, which for a lot of you, it is the onset of peak season for stitching because a lot of people, they have requests, oh, could you make this for me? Could you make that for me? And you already have a lot of things that you want to make for presents, for craft fairs, for consignment, all these things. You know, it can be a little bit of a whirlwind. So this is, I thought a good opportunity to impart to you some of my experience, knowledge, etc., etc. So, with that being said, also I get a number of questions. Do you sell on Etsy? Do you sell your items in craft fairs, etc.? Well, okay. First things first. As far as Etsy goes, I do not sell any of my items on Etsy because I haven't really started a store yet. It is something that I've wanted to do for a number of years, and I would really like to at some point. Right now, it's not in the cards for me um, because between my job and YouTube, two really, really big things for me. My job, it isn't a huge expenditure of time or energy, no, but it is something I need to do. And then, of course, there's YouTube, and that's that is the crux of my time and my energy. It's a full time kind of job, if you will, um, because from the time that I wake up till the time that I go to work, I'm stitching. From the time that I get home from work to the time that I go to sleep, I'm stitching. And so when I'm not doing that, I'm doing a video on how to do the stitching. And it is a labor of love, and I absolutely adore it, but it takes up a lot of my time. And so if I then were to start an Etsy store, that would, of course, require a lot of time and energy as well. And I thought perhaps it might not be a great idea to split off into a third direction and potentially open a can of worms. So for now, um, I'm doing what I do. Now, into the next item, craft fairs. Okay, well, there are pros and cons to craft fairs, of course. I have done quite a few of them myself. Um, and so there are some things to be aware of, so I wanted to give you some of my experience, some tips, some hints, etc. Um, Now, you really need to think about various things when you're going to do a craft fair. A lot of things you need to consider, namely, how much is the venue? Will they provide a table or chairs or electricity if you need it? What kind of a venue is it? Is it outdoors, indoors? If it's outdoors, do they have a rain date? If not, is the money refundable? Big issue. Very big thing to consider. And you might want to reconsider doing a venue if it does not have a rain date and it is outdoors. If it's indoors, you're good. Um, Also, if you can get a chance to speak to other vendors and what their experience has been at that particular venue, always a good thing. See what their experience is. See what kind of vendors are there, perhaps on a previous date. Is it more of a actual craft fair where people are selling handmade items, or is it more of a flea market kind of environment where people are getting items that they bought by the gross and then they're selling them? Um, that's another thing. It can be very disheartening when you're sitting there and you have handmade items and somebody is selling wind up toys that they bought from some other country and they bought a gross of them, and people are passing by things that you've spent countless hours on. That can be very frustrating, and I speak from experience. It almost seems like you're getting gypped. Um, So the integrity of the fair, that's another thing to consider. Um, Also, price points, variety, that those sorts of things that very important to consider. It is very, very beneficial to have a wide price point range for your items. If all of your items are in the same price point of, say, $20 to $50, a lot of people are going to pass you by. Is from what I've experienced. Um, if you have some impulse items, really good to have. Something that's small, inexpensive, and quick to make, very good to have. For example, say like a little crocheted flower brooch, something that's really easy to do, and it's small, it's easy, it's quick, and you could have them, in a cute little display, and it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to go for the $50 shawl, but oh, that's cute, you know, little Jimmy's teacher might like that. I mean, it works. Also, you need to consider appealing to a wide audience of different patronage. Um, Children, a lot of children do attend these craft fairs. Do you have anything that would appeal to them? In previous fairs, I have made crocheted amigurumi style stuffed toys. Those were always a big hit. I can't stress that enough. Anything that is cute, you're in like Flynn. Um, Especially if you can produce these things quickly and inexpensively. Also, make sure that they are child safe. Also, done with acrylic yarn so that it is easy to wash and dry and care for. Really, really helpful to keep that in mind. Um, Also, the variety as far as colors, textures, stitches. If you're doing, say, hats and scarves, well, it's one thing to do, a certain color palette. You know, um, I myself am very guilty of that. Um, when I was first starting off, my color palette was predominantly earth tones because that's what I like to stitch in. Not everybody is into green and brown and gray. So keep in mind, go for a variety of colors. Think outside of your comfort zone, think outside of the box, and use a lot of different colors. Something eye catching. Um, it'll help. Variety is the spice of life. So be spicy. Also, as far as stitches are concerned, don't just go for something that's lacy or frilly or something like that, flowery, etc. Nothing wrong with that. But also expand your range into stitches that are more robust, colors that are more somber, perhaps for your more masculine audience. Um, it's good to have a variety so that you can appeal to as wide an audience as possible. Other little ideas to think about are to have bags on hand. Very, very good thing to have. And you don't even need to spend a lot of money. You could just save your bags from grocery shopping, no problem. But it will help because a lot of people, they like to, carry their items away um, as opposed to draping it over their arm while they peruse the rest of the fair. Also, if you have business cards, put one into each bag, and that way you'll be good. Also, it is a very good idea to sit at your table with a friend because a lot of these fairs, they go all day. And there's nothing worse than sitting on a folding chair for 6, 8 hours, and you can't get away from your table to use the restroom or grab a bite to eat because nobody's watching your stuff. Well, it's good to have a friend there. Also, it's very important because it's good to have a second set of eyes. Quite often, it's there are ebbs and flows to craft fairs. There will be one or two passing by, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's half a dozen to a dozen all around your table, and people are trying stuff on and people are examining things and they're looking, well, you know, if they're enthusiastic about your work, great. Unfortunately, some less than savory people see it as an opportunity to break out their five-finger discount and snatch something that you've worked so hard on. Well, fortunately, I've never had that experience, but it does happen. So it is really good to have somebody sit with you who will help you be aware of what's going on around you, so that you can prevent that happening. Um, so those are a couple of little things to keep in mind as far as craft fairs are concerned. Now, also, last but not least by a long shot, we have charities. And yes, this is the time of year when craft fairs are in full swing, but also it's just as heartwarming, you know, when you're making somebody happy. Well, it's one thing to sell something and feel like, hey, I did that. I sold something. Yeah, it's a great feeling. But you know what? I would say that it's even a greater feeling if you can give something to somebody who really needs it. It warms the heart. It really does. And so I'm very lucky that my local library just so happens to do a charity drive. And that is what all of this chaos behind me is. All of these items, not what I'm wearing. Oh no, this is mine. All of the items behind me and to the sides of me and so forth, I'm donating all of these items to my local library's charity drive. And because I feel that it's a great thing to give back to the community, that to me, it's given me so much. So I want to give something back. And it's a great feeling. And there are so many venues, for lack of a better word, that are looking for charitable donations. And let's face it, there are only so many hats and scarves and whatnots that you actually need. Um, I crochet and I stitch as much as I do because I find that it's not only creatively gratifying and it gives me a sense of purpose and it gives me a sense of calmness and relieves my stress and gives me a sense of well being. Um, but where was I going with this train of thought? It kind of left the station without me. But the thing is that the point is that I make these things regardless, um, and they add up. Uh, there's only so many items that you need, and seeing as how I'm not doing Etsy and I don't plan on doing another craft fair anytime soon, um, I thought that it would be a great way for me to not only do something good for my community and to give back to somebody who really needs it, but also that way I can have some more space. Spoken like a true yarn addict, right? um, that way I can have some more space where I can, you know, get rid of some of these items so that I can take those same bins and I can fill them all up again for next year. And so, yeah, there's a small ulterior motive in there. I admit, but the main crux, the main motive really is to do something good. And it's very gratifying. It really is. And so for me, yes, I'm utilizing my local library. Now, there are a lot of other places that you can donate to. I would suggest giving them a call first and seeing what it is that they're looking for, if they have any certain requirements for the items, if it needs to be a pet free or smoke free environment that the items are coming from, if they only want certain colors. Some people, they would prefer darker colors because they're easier to care for. Offhand, I would say, sort of as a rule of thumb, if you can, stick with acrylics because they're a lot easier to care for. Also, as a bonus, they're usually cheaper. But you could still do some fun patterns. You don't have to be pigeonholed into any particular pattern, though. You go creative, you know. Um, let them be fashionable too. Everybody should be fashionable. um, so, nursing homes, um, hospitals, hospice care. Um, there's so many places where you can donate things, some more specific than others. In veterans' homes, they often look for lap blankets, which those are pretty quick to do. My mom, she does a lot of knitting of lap blankets in the feather and fan stitch. Um, it's one of her favorites. So she does a bunch of those. Also, shout out to my mom. She also does a lot of quilting, and she quilts. She quilts quilts for children in hospitals and donates those as well year round. And I'm very proud of her for that. I really am, because you know she's not squandering her talents. She's doing something good, and I really appreciate that. I'm not really so much of a quilter. I'm much more of a stitcher, as you know, as far as yarn is concerned. One day, one day, I would like to do a little quilting. Who knows? We'll see. But for now, this is what I do. So, also in hospitals, people that are going through chemo, um, chemo caps are a really big item that is needed. Go for that really soft yarn. Preemie caps, blankets for new mothers. Sadly, also bereavement blankets are another thing that is often needed and very much appreciated. Um, uh, Also, I mean, there are no real limits to what you can give. There really aren't, because somebody always needs to be kept warm. And if you live in an area where it is predominantly warm, well, that's okay. You can send items to other parts of the country where it gets bitter cold. And in the description box of this video, I'm going to put a link to a website that has a huge list of various charitable organizations that deal in stitched goods, and where you can donate them to. So I'm going to put that in the description box below. And, you know, more likely than not, in your own area, there's somebody in need. And there's an organization that collects for those people in need. And it's worth doing. I did it last year, and I'm doing it again, and I makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. It really does, and it's very gratifying, and I encourage you to do it because I mean it's something that I do anyway, and it's something that I'm passionate about anyway, and I would feel terribly selfish if I kept it to myself. I would. So I say give it, give it out and share the love and share the warmth, and let's all do this together. You and I, let's do this together. Let's make somebody warm. Okay? So listen, until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, and above all, stay stitching. Okay? I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.